Got a full boat today. Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome back. Nathan Ivey with you. Let me see. I think, yeah, that's everybody. Who are we missing? We're missing somebody here. I think we're
Laketa.
missing Laketa, but hopefully we'll get a chance to connect with her along the way. Got a blast from the past back with us, Kevin Gordon. We've been trying to check his audio. Kevin, can you hear us? Can't hear you. Okay, so let's try plan B and see if that works. So, Kevin, say something now.
I can hear you.
You guys getting the echo?
I can hear him very faintly.
Still not really hearing it on my end.
Okay, give me 1 second. And I'm going to try something as we get started. But I want to introduce the crew. Hey, Kevin, just hold on 1 second here. I got an old school workaround. We'll try that in just a second. But we got Fanon Rucker with us. How you doing, Fanon?
I'm awesome. Good to see everybody. I had to dress up for the occasion.
Oh, thank you so much. You got Alandes Powell with us. How you doing, Alandes? And Phil Heimlich. Good to see you, Phil.
I dressed up too, as you can see.
As always. Kevin Kevin Aldridge, the voice of reason. How you doing, Kevin?
I'm doing
there
good.
There you go, calling the voice of reason again.
I noticed that little slip up when you said "welcome foul" instead of Phil. I think
yeah, my mouth is still trying to catch up to what I'm doing right now. So, and then we got Laketa Cole is here with us. She dropped off. Hopefully, we won't have the same issues we had earlier in the week, but we'll figure it out along the way. But let's get straight into it. I know we got people in the audience with us. Really appreciate you. Let's put the audience up on, and hopefully everybody can see who is with us today. There it is. Boom. Good. Shahira is here. She writes, "Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Friday, TGIF." Vanita writes, "Good afternoon, Nate, crew, and guest." We'll just say crew. Rachel writes, "Good afternoon, everyone." And Shahira writes, she says, hello to Alandes and Fanon. She says, good to see both of you. Good to see you as well. Absolutely. Well, let's jump. Dina writes, "Good afternoon." Let's just jump straight into the topics, and I'm going to work with Kevin's audio, and then we'll try to reconnect with Laketa as well. I don't see her backstage, so something happened. Again, you know how this is. I mean, it's the 21st century, but the technology is not yet perfect, so we'll get there one day.
Well, maybe Nathan, is it possible this could be what they call user error? Just want to.
It's totally possible, man.
I'm not coming to any conclusions, but I'm just asking,
You know what, man? Listen, anything is possible. Yep, yeah. Could be that. Or it could be the first sign of the AI apocalypse. So either or, whichever you feel more comfortable with. But just let me get a second. Let me set the first topic up. And our first conversation is going to take us over to North College Hill. We talked about North College Hill and they had some issues with students who were going to some of the businesses at North College Hill before they were going to school. And we had a real robust conversation about that. Well, something else has happened, and I want to get the crew's opinion about this. You had hundreds of students, about 250 students over at North College Hill. They participated in an anti-ICE walkout protest. This was on Wednesday. And you saw this in a lot of places in Cincinnati and all over the country. And a smaller group of them went to a Kroger store over on Hamilton Avenue. And as the reports are saying, it got disruptive. I'm not sure if you've seen the video. I can play it for you here in a bit once I take care of the audio stuff. But, you know, people have said that it was disruptive. It was rowdy. It's been reported that at least one patron was hit in the head or hit with a bottle. Allegedly, North College Hill students allegedly were like throwing like beer bottles up in the ceiling. And it was a really disruptive scene. They took some quotes in the articles I read from the superintendent, who was an African-American. Blaylock is his last name. And he said, among other things, quote, just disgusted, mean I'm devastated. Quote, we work really hard with our students and our community to build a relationship. He was very disappointed. He went on to respond to people, I think that was on social media, perhaps Facebook, that were holding him accountable. He said, nah, we need to start holding these parents more accountable. And, you know, it just leads to the first question, which is, in this situation, are adults blaming kids because they do not want to confront the politics behind the protest?
Are you calling that a protest? Excuse me. Are you calling what those kids did a protest?
Well, I mean, yeah, there was a protest, an anti-ICE protest. So yeah, I'm calling it, at least initially.
It was. So, and and hopefully, Phil, you'll be, I think, let me help you agree.
Help me.
Okay.
Help me.
So first of all, I think that we've been working on this thing to actually teach civic engagement, protesting in high schools, and North College Hill is one of them that was on our slate to kind of work through. I think what's really important is protesting comes with a lot of emotions. My first time doing it, I said some things that I would never say again because it's all this emotions in you. So you open that door through protest. The person who opened this door was whoever voted for this bullcrap. So that door got open, which is why they're going through ICE and
You're saying the people who voted for Trump are responsible for these kids throwing bottles around Kroger?
I'm getting ready to tell you root cause. Let's stick with me for 2 seconds, and I'm not going to belabor it, right?
All right.
So go with me. So there's something that started the ICE protest. It didn't start by the kids. So first of all, now they're in a situation. When I say the ICE protest, it's a reason why they're protesting. So you understand root cause. You go back to figure out kind of the genesis of it. Without the ICE matter, they wouldn't have been protesting. Right or wrong? Anyone tell me?
What if but what if they shot somebody? Would you say the same thing?
They didn't. I'm not talking about shooting. We're talking about facts. We're not talking about not facts.
Hey, but I mean, you're excusing them committing acts of vandalism and violence
I'm not
because they were upset about ICE. I'm upset about ICE. I don't go to Kroger and throw bottles around.
Okay. I'm not saying anything because you're not letting me. So tell me when you're finished, and then
I'm done. You go ahead.
You sure?
I'm listening.
Okay. So first of all, you have to go back. So that says adults, right? Like what has kind of like started this. And then you get protest, and protest is a very emotional thing. And people have to be talked to about how to engage civilly and all of that. And I don't think that's happened, right? And then you have all of this going on, and then they go and do something at Kroger.
Are you're saying somebody should have taught those kids that when you're upset, don't go to Kroger and throw bottles around? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying anything.
What? I mean,
because I'm not getting ready to go back and forth with Phil talking. Either you. So
I'm gonna try to stick with what the question is that Nathan asked: are adults blaming kids because they do not want to confront the politics behind the protest? And I say this in any incidents where you have any kind of protest that turns violent or destructive. At that point, what you do is you take the issues at hand off the table, and it becomes about the incidents that takes place. I don't think that any adult nor anybody in any position of authority should excuse what those young people did in terms of what they did to disrupt, destroy property in that Kroger. That'll never be anything that I endorse. That's not peaceful protest, and in my mind, it distracts from what the real issues are. Now, I will say, kids are kids, right? These are high school, teenage kids, and I think to get to the point that Alandes might have been trying to make, protests are particularly emotional for adults, let alone kids who don't necessarily have the same level of experience or perhaps maturity that adults might have in that situation. So part of my question would be, is who organized this protest with these young people? Were adults involved, or was this something that the kids just kind of did on their own? I can remember being in high school and being a part of walkouts or different protests and things of that nature. And I will say that we did not necessarily maybe even understand the issues fully, or for some kids, it was just an opportunity to get out of class. And you always got some knuckleheads that are a part of every group that's going to be doing something. So I think every kid who might have been a part of this protest wasn't a part of the disruptive element. There might have been, 2 or 3 kids who was in it to for whatever reasons why they wanted to do those things, and to project that on the other kids who might have been wanting to protest for the issue is not fair. Those who did it should absolutely be held accountable. But I think anytime you introduce any kind of property damage, violence, or disruption, it ceases to be about the issue and the politics behind it, and then the story becomes exactly what we're talking about here.
Right.
So I understand the question, and I appreciate the question. Are adults blaming kids because they do not want to confront the policies behind the protest? I think that adults are blaming the kids because those aren't their kids. Because we all know anytime kids do stuff and we see them on the news, the parents themselves say, now don't be overhanded with my child. And with other kids, they're a little less accommodating. And so I think that the ones who are blaming the kids are blaming the kids because those aren't their kids who they're discussing.
Excuse me, just to clarify, saying, Fanon, when you say blaming, are we talking about the fact that those kids hopefully will be or have been arrested? Or when you say blaming, the issue, I don't care who blames who, but the question is, should they be arrested and held accountable? I mean, what do you mean blaming?
Well, I mean blaming because that's what the question is. I think we probably need to ask the person.
Maybe I would ask Nathan, what are you talking about? Whether they should be arrested? What are you talking about?
Well, I mean, that's one way of looking at it. But in general, I think that there's a conversation primarily that came from the superintendent about who to blame. People online was blaming teachers, saying that they organized it, and that because they organized it, it led to the so-called disruptive behavior at Kroger. But I like where you're going with it. I mean,
well, Nathan, in the superintendent's defense, he said what the kids did was unacceptable, but in his comments, he blamed their parents. Yes. He said, everybody wants to blame him and the teachers at the school district for what happened, but he said, where are these kids' parents? So, and I agree with that. I mean, I think people do take shots at the school district and that sort of thing. They were doing it with the absenteeism at the schools, and I think the superintendent made the same point, that people feel very comfortable shifting the blame to like teachers and school officials, but nobody ever wants to say, hey, where are these kids' parents, and hold them accountable.
Yes. So
and I think that's what he was saying.
And I think that, first of all, the question, no one wants to talk about the protests. I think, Phil, you showed that just by the fact we couldn't even talk about it. No one wants, so to answer the question, no one wants to talk about the root of the protest. When it comes to kids, I would blame my child. Like we talk about blaming, the only person I would be holding accountable right now is my child, period. And I would handle it the way my parents handled me, which y'all might not be okay with. So it comes down to us talking about blaming. Who did it? Who made the decision?
Those
And
kids
how do
made
you
the
teach
decision for
kids-
themselves. What do you
and
mean
how
who
do
made
you
the
teach-
decision?
And how do you teach kids to make better decisions?
I can answer that question, Alandis. I'll tell you how you teach the kids. If these kids, okay, if they spend a couple nights at 2020, that they will learn from that how to protest and how not to protest. Very simple.
Yeah, well,
If that were true, if a
well, it
couple
is
of
true
days
for
in 2020
it
would
is true
heal
for a
the
lot of
issues
kids,
that
not
we
every
have,
kid.
then
But
we
if there
probably
are
would
some
not
immediate,
have the
excuse me,
crime
if there's some
problems that we
immediate
have everywhere around the
consequences,
country.
it generally influences future behavior.
not everyone. The percentage isn't large, and I will tell you, I'm saying first you blame the people doing it. So we're talking about blame, and we're talking about everyone except the people who did it. So I'm just taking us back to my parenting, and my kids turned out okay. They've all actually marched, even as children. They've all I've taken care of them. And then the next piece is parents. What happens at home? And then the next thing is what happened in school. And then you actually go talk to their other kids. My mom used to say it was my friends who was instigating. And my dad had to tell her one day, no, they should be calling about her. She's the instigator. So you have a whole community you talk to. But I think the word blame isn't a good word, because what we're talking about is how to correct behavior before it comes too large to cost them their freedom. Phil, you might want to put everyone in jail. Send me
I don't
some.
want to put everyone in
Send me
jail.
some
Let
of
me tell
your
you
folks
something.
you want to send to
Let me say
20.
something. When I was in the prosecutor's office, I started out for about a year in the juvenile division, okay, which was I really enjoyed. And I'll tell you what I observed. It's kind of sad in a way. What I observed is a kid commits 3 or 4 offenses, and I'm not talking about murders, stuff like this, and there's no consequences. They put him on probation and but there's no real consequences. And then the kid ends up committing a serious crime and he's sent off to DYS, or even worse, he's bound over. Okay. Now, if that kid, I always felt had some immediate consequences, nothing horrible, a couple nights at 2020, then I believe that was an effective deterrent to protect him from committing future crimes. But if you let kids, if you make excuses for them, and if you let them do that kind of vandalism or disturbance, like violent stuff like that, if you let them get away, guess what? The lesson they learned is, hey, I can do this and not get in trouble.
So you're talking about scared, like a scared straight thing is what you're talking about, like scare them straight. Because I understand what you're saying. Every act, there's a repercussion for your actions. I get what you're saying, and I agree with you. I think it's the parents' responsibility. I don't think we always want to keep blaming the school, but it's also those parents. You know, how your child behave is also, you know, reflective of you as well as a parent. But you know, I think the child also needs to have some responsibility for their actions. I think they don't understand what they did is not something to play with. You vandalized that store. That's a lot. Somebody's gonna have to pay for that.
Yeah.
The only thing I don't like
think
about that. No, go ahead. Go right ahead, Kevin.
No, I was just going to say, to follow up on what Alandes was kind of saying, Phil, to your point and to Laketa's point, nobody is saying that kids shouldn't be held accountable for their actions. But I do think that, and I'll just speak from my own personal experience, there's nothing that the police could have done to me that I was more afraid of than what my parents were going to do to me at home when I messed up. In fact, I tell a story all the time about how I stole something out of the Kmart where my mom worked, and she marched me to the manager's office and told him he could call the police on me if he wanted to. Now, thankfully, he didn't. But I always joke, like I would have felt safer with the police because I was scared about what was going to happen to me when I got home.
Kevin, what about kids that don't have parents like yours?
Probably been safer.
What about kids that don't have those kind of parents? I mean,
well, and yes,
they need role models and mentors.
Yeah. And that's where we gotta, you know, try to rally the community more around those kids. But yes, in some instances, Phil, where there are no supports, you got to find other supports. And hopefully that's not always just throwing a kid straight into jail. Maybe it is pairing them up with a mentor or putting them in some situation where they can be taught sort of the proper ways to deal with it. It's kind of like I said, it's an emotional situation when you turn kids who might not have had that kind of teaching or training like Alandes talked about, then you may get one or two who go off the rails and kind of do like what you saw in Kroger. That's not excusing it, but that does explain, what happens. Because like I said, we see it with adults who don't always handle those types of situations the best, let alone high school kids.
Right.
Kevin Gordon, can you hear us? I want to see.
I can hear everything, but I guess you can't hear me.
No, we hear you great, Kevin. You're great.
Perfect.
Oh, what the hell happened?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. So let's back up. We're talking about this vandalism at the school.
I said Kroger.
I'm sorry, at Kroger. Alandes wants to talk about the basic problem in terms of the protest itself. And was this done on school time? Were this during the school day?
I believe it was after school.
After school?
I think so.
So you're talking about making sure that these students know how to protest and protest accurately or efficiently or non-violently. What are the test scores at these schools? Why don't we start with that first and make sure that these kids are learning how to read, write at the current grade level before we start talking about them trying to be political activists, talking about something that they can't even vote on yet. Let's get into the stage.
And let me say this. I think it happened during school. I think they walked out of school, just like they had a plan for the same thing at Taft today. They walked out of school and then they were supposed to come back. So they did the same thing today at Taft, but have not been no reports because they went back to school. So I think it was, but the kids just walked out. It was nothing that the school had anything to do with. It was something that the kids organized, and they walked out of their classrooms and went in to protest.
Yeah. Thank you for that clarification. I believe she is right.
I appreciate that.
And Kevin, to answer your question really quick is, first of all, I believe we can do more than one thing at a time. So when it comes to test scores, no one is oblivious to that. And if this was a different school, we wouldn't even be asking that question, because people can do both. And it's okay to teach.
Well, they're not doing the one.
I'm gonna finish. It's okay to teach kids. We're talking about a couple kids, because what happens is we try to solve for the exceptions. We don't go and look at what the majority of what happened. So you can solve for the exceptions, but when you do, you have to look at a singular child. And was it their first time? It's other things. And to go to say, can they read, right? And make the assumption that they can't learn civic engagement because they can't read. What we understand is that reading is important. And if people who could vote had read, we wouldn't be in this situation. So we do know the importance of that, but we can do more than one thing at a time.
Well, I think you ought to be successful with the one before you move to the other.
Listen, that's like saying I have to make it's not even a great comment for this to me. I don't even understand where you're going to with that.
Yeah, because I mean, let me say this: our people back in slavery couldn't read and write, and they protested. One has nothing to do with the other. I mean, that doesn't mean because you can't read and write, you can't protest. I don't know what's right and what's wrong. They have a problem with the ISIS, and so they're protesting. It doesn't. I mean,
these kids are supposed to be in school, right?
Jesus.
And so they walk out from school in order to do a protest. How is that appropriate? How's that even right? And then on top of it, they perform acts of vandalism.
But the question is, who's at fault for that?
Yeah.
That was
first of all, if the school isn't going to take action about students walking out of class and not being there when they're supposed to be there, that's a problem.
And Kevin, we don't know that they haven't. I mean, we're making a lot of assumptions here.
Right.
The school just kind of let
so it doesn't
like
matter.
I said, even when I was in high school, like high school walkouts are not anything new. Okay, let's start there, and let's not pretend like this is the first time students have walked out, whether that's in protest of something that's going on at their school or at a larger issue. You know, I participated in walkouts when I was in high school, and yes, a lot of times those students who participated in that, you face consequences from the school when you came back for walking out of class, whether that was detention, suspension, or whatever. So we don't know that hasn't happened in this case yet. It certainly wasn't a part of any of the reporting that I saw, but that doesn't mean that the school isn't doing something.
That's fair.
And Kevin, let me ask you a question real quick. Kevin Gordon, would you feel the same way if it was a pro-ICE demonstration?
Yes, I'd feel the same way, because if you're going out, if you're leaving school and you are there in school to do one thing, and that is to learn. You're not there to walk out and go someplace else. I don't care whether you're a pro-ICE protest or support or anti-ICE protest. You are supposed to be there at school. All right. This teaches people. All right. I mean, in the business world, can you just, walk out of work and go do whatever you want to do and then come back, commit acts of vandalism and then come back to work? No. Well, you teach people that when there's a time and a place for everything, and the time and the place for everything is, if you're in school, you're in school.
Government class teaches the constitutional amendments and the Declaration of Independence and the founding of our country on the basis of protest and resistance. We learned that in school. It's how we know it today. So if we are actually instilling in our students some amount of the founding principles of the country, then one part of it being enacted by them taking a step to go outside of school is not necessarily contrary to them learning and understanding and applying the principles that we hope they're going to learn in a government class that helps them to understand how the government operates.
With the rights come responsibility, and your responsibility is to be in school at that particular point in time. So, nobody's denying anybody's right for First Amendment. Nobody's denying anybody's right for the Constitution, but you do have a responsibility that if you are a student, if you are under the age of whatever the mandatory age that you have to be in school, you have to be in school, or you should be in school during that period of time. And if you're not, you have now violated the Constitution by breaking a particular law in order to do that. So
let me say something, Kevin. Would you feel the same way if there was no vandalism? If they were just protesting about an issue, would you still feel the same way if there was no acts of vandalism and they were just protesting, engaging in a civic act of what they learned in school?
If it's walking out of class for something other than class-related items, whether you're protesting, as Kevin mentioned before, protesting something going on at the school, that's been done a lot of times. But if you're going out of school during school time for anything, that's wrong. I don't care. It doesn't matter what the protest is about.
So Kevin, what I do know is that if we were talking about Indian Hills, you wouldn't have asked about their grade point average first before they were even allowed. So that wouldn't have happened. So even that question that you had a problem with says there's a whole problem. I
would ask that question of any school, because if you look at
you, and I'm sure you wouldn't, but I'm gonna go.
Yeah, well, okay. So you're putting words in my mouth.
I am.
Okay. But the problem is that I don't care what school it is. I don't care whether it's Indian Hill, Fort Thomas Independent Schools, or whatever. If you look at the individual colleges and universities right now, one of the biggest classes of people coming into school is remedial English, math, and other things English, math, and other things to get them basically up to the college level. So I don't care if it's Fort Thomas. I don't care if it's Indian Hill. I don't know if these kids, quite honestly, I know that the test scores around the country are down. The ACT scores are down. SAT scores are down. And so something's happening in all schools where people aren't getting the necessary education that they need to either go into the workforce, go into a trade or something, or possibly being at the level of knowledge that they can even do college grade classes.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Kevin. This is my little tiny opinion. I hear what you're saying. I hear every word of it. But you know, this country was founded on protests. 1776, Tea Party. We were founded on that. And so for me, I feel like, you know, as long as it was a peaceful protest, there is nothing more American than what these young people were doing. I mean, and that's the core of what they're being taught in class, is to be a good citizen, to be a good American, right?
Do it
And
on
that's-
your own time.
But that is their time.
No.
That was their time.
No, your job at that point is to be at school.
I hear you. I hear you. And I'm sure those people 200 years ago, they were supposed to be somewhere else, but they were somewhere protesting for the formation of this country.
No, the Tea Party actually happened at night, so they were probably off work at that particular point in time.
Well, that was back before child labor law, so I'm sure they had kids working 24/7 back then. So, you know, this is a part of the fundamental bedrock of what it means to be an American. Stepping outside the margin, coloring outside the line.
Nathan, are you talking about the walking out of school? Which
I'm talking about the walking out of school and the protest.
The vandalism in the store. What are you
I'm
talking
talking about not the vandalism in the school. I'll be honest with you. I wonder if that's just another example of the knee-jerk overreaction when primarily black and brown kids do something, right?
I think the black and first of all, I didn't even know what race these kids were. Maybe it was in the article. I don't know.
That's my question. I don't even know. You know.
However, the knee-jerk reaction, whatever race they were, was the kids. They're the ones that made the knee-jerk reaction. They're doing. I don't have a problem, as Kevin does, about walking out of class for a protest. I think that is. I agree, somewhat American, if you will, or in the character of our country. But all I'm saying is, I mean, I don't care what color they are. I didn't even know. You do not go into a store and try to wreck the place.
Here's what I think we got to stop doing.
But you know what the operative word that you used was, Phil? The operative word you used was, and you keep using it, kids. Children. Kids.
Here's where I would.
Their brains are not fully developed.
So are you saying they should not be charged with this? What's your point?
I'm absolutely saying they shouldn't be charged. What is charging these young people going to do?
What if they stab somebody?
I disagree with you.
What level of violence would you say they should get charged with? You're saying they damage the store, they throw bottles.
I'm gonna tell you what I think should happen.
What if they shot somebody? Would you say the same thing?
But we're not talking about shooting somebody.
Go with the hypotheticals.
We're not
like
talking
that,
about
Phil,
shooting
that
somebody.
takes the conversation.
Let me tell you what I think should happen. After Kevin finishes, I'll tell you what I think should happen.
Go ahead, Nathan.
Here's what I think should happen. I think they should find these individuals, sit down and talk with them. I think it should be a conversation with mom, dad. If mom and dad aren't available, somebody from the family, somebody from the school, somebody from the community, somebody from law enforcement. They should have a conversation with these young people about it. And I think at the very most, these young people should have to serve some type of community service where they give back to either Kroger or North College Hill in some kind of way. But they should.
The only way you force that is by arresting them.
No, that's not the only way you can force that. You can talk to people. People are civil.
How are you going to force them if you don't arrest them and charge them?
You don't arrest them and charge them to do that. The school can do that in their own little ecosystem. Sit down with these young people. Let them, because they're not animals. They're young people. Sit down with them. Talk with them.
You don't have to be an animal. You don't have to be an animal, Nathan, to be held accountable. Here's what I think we got to stop doing. Okay,
tell me
what we got to stop defending bad actions of bad people who are not. Well, I shouldn't say bad people. We got to stop defending bad actions, right? Because we don't want it to cast aspersions on the rest of the group who wasn't doing anything. But I think we actually do the opposite by trying to defend a handful of people who are disruptive and doing things that they shouldn't be doing when the rest of the people aren't following or aren't involved in that. So instead of just saying, hey, 99% of the students who were out there protesting weren't causing any problem. But I'm not going to make excuses for 2 or 3 students who was throwing bottles, hitting people in the head, and should be held accountable for those actions. We got to stop defending. We got to stop defending bad actions, right?
Who is defending bad actions?
It takes away from the legitimacy and the credibility of the overall point. And we do this every time.
That sounds good, Kevin.
Where we start making excuses for bad actions.
Who is making excuses?
Say, if you was bad enough to do it, then you bad enough to face the consequence.
I don't like the word bad, but nobody, I haven't heard anybody
Well,
on this panel.
What would you describe? How would you describe activities of throwing bottles, destroying property? That sure ain't
disruptive.
Good.
I would use the word disruptive.
Oh,
destructive.
Come on, man.
I would say it was disruptive and destructive.
This is where.
But here's my question for you,
This is the
Kevin.
problem. This is the problem that center people have with liberals. You always want to try to put some other kind of language and minimize it.
That's the language that was used in the article in the newspaper.
Anybody with a brain and common sense would not sit there and say, "Oh, if I hit you in the head with a bottle, that's disruptive."
That is the language that would, hold on, let me back up here.
Come on, man.
That was the language that was used by the superintendent. That was the language by the people that were used in Kroger. They said it was disruptive. So I'm using their language. So take that up with them. And nobody on here has defended them. The only difference between what I have said,
Nathan. You have
no, sir,
Nathan,
no, sir.
You said they shouldn't be. No, you
that's
said
not defending,
kids,
sir.
Let me finish. You said because they're kids, they shouldn't be arrested for this. That's what you said.
I said
that's
they're
exactly
children, and in my opinion, they shouldn't be arrested.
Okay, so
that doesn't mean I'm
defending them, making excuses, and saying they shouldn't be held accountable. You're saying that.
This is what I said, so I can speak for myself, and I'm going to speak slowly so you can understand me. Okay.
I think I understand what you said.
No one has defended them. We just disagree about what should happen next. So, that's not defending. You think that you should have a heavy hand and you got to come down with the law and lock them up. I just disagree with what should happen next. I talked about holding them accountable in a different way, a way that is more appropriate for their age and development. You just come in with that law and order, lock them up, give them consequences. That's the only way they're going to learn.
Let me explain something how it works in juvenile law.
Let me finish. We just happen to disagree. We just happen to disagree about what the consequences should be.
No.
We both agree.
Here's what you're missing.
But we both agree, sir, that there should be consequences.
No, you don't. But with all due respect, you don't understand how the system works. So let me explain. Okay?
I've been in the system. I know how the system works.
All right, fine.
Well, hold on, Phil, before you say the system. Here's a missing point. All of these kids are different. They are supposed to be handled as individual humans. So if it's my first time doing some crap like this, and I was caught up in the emotion, it might be one consequence. If I did it last week and been arrested before, it might be a different consequence. You guys are trying to put them all in a bucket. And what I'm telling you is that is the unfairness right now that we keep talking about. Because how I treat my kids are individuals, and it's different because it's based on what they do, how they react. It's based on a lot of things. So
I don't believe that the individual laws that are on the books.
Let me finish, Kevin. Let's not pull.
Let's take all day to do it.
And we really have to do it because no one's saying this as individuals. So how can we be saying what we should have done collectively? That's my question.
If the laws are on the books that you're not supposed to do certain things, do they have on the law, well, if this is your first offense, if this is your second offense, this is the punishment? No, it is done on an individual basis. The judge or the prosecutor would take a look at the process in terms of that individual, in terms of how many, if this is their second, third, fourth, fifth time, if it's their first time, how severe was the act that they did, what was their level of participation, and they would be charged accordingly. The other thing we keep talking about here is that maybe these kids don't have the age and understanding of their consequences and all this sort of stuff. Yet we assume that they have the age and understanding to do the protest, that they understand enough about what it means or what this process is or what they are actually protesting, that they can process this and do a proper protest. So which is it? If they are understanding the protest, then they should be at the age and understanding to accept the consequences of their actions.
So you said the same thing I did. Treat them like individuals. So I really can't.
They usually are.
Because you need to treat people as individuals based on what they've done, and consequences should be accordingly. It
We can
should
agree
be
with
a
that.
good thing. That's what I'm saying, period. And the responsibility is the kids who did it
Mm-hmm.
first. And that's it. And then it goes from there. I don't know what all the talk is about. We're talking about kids. We have put them, what we don't want to talk about is we put them in a horrible situation with ICE to worry about people coming in, taking their friends, our entire.
So you're blaming ICE. I'm no
blaming
fan of
you
ICE. You're
and-
blaming
yes,
ICE for what
I'm
those
blaming
kids did.
all of us as adults.
You're
because
blaming ICE for what those guys did in Kroger. Is that what
listen,
you're saying?
Listen,
It's ICE's fault?
listen. I am
I'm
blaming.
listening. I've been listening all the time.
We need to blame. The first question was, are people like pulling away from the root of what happened? And what I'm telling you is that some of those kids may not have even been there ever, if not going through the protest. We don't know because I don't know them.
Okay, I agree with you on that
I
point.
do not know.
I agree with you on that point. Let's go a little bit further. Why are they in that position? Why is ICE in that position? Because you had a dementia-ridden president, Otto Penn, who allowed the border to be, or allowed this country to be invaded by up to 15 to 20 million people at our border. And now these people are here. And if they're here illegally, under law, most of them should be deported. And so let's not start blaming ICE. Let's start going, if you want to go back to these kids are there because of ICE, well, they wouldn't have been there because of ICE if our border had been secured under the Biden administration.
I
That
understand.
makes zero sense.
That's a bit of the challenge of that rabbit hole if you go down that with politics, because it's never ending, because somebody will have some cause that was the cause of the cause for the cause going all the way back. Look, it starts
Well,
at this.
Kevin, if we're talking about ICE and if we're talking about immigration, you do have the root cause. You don't have to go back any further other than the fact that they're
Okay,
here.
so what was all right, Kevin, what was the root cause of them executing those two people? Is that because of Biden? Those ICE guys and this one guy got
Oh, you want to
shot
talk
10
about
Let
that?
me finish.
Yeah.
No.
Oh,
No, we
you
don't.
want to talk about that?
Let me finish.
Bring it on, baby.
I'm asking you a question. You got this guy who was shot 10 times in the back, okay? And are you saying, let me hear this, is the root cause, is Biden the one who caused that? Because he let these people in, and those ICE guys.
I'll tell you who the root cause
do
there. That
other than to fire
falls
10
on
shots
Tim
in the
Walz.
back of that guy.
That falls on Mayor Fry.
Huh?
That falls on Mayor Fry, and that falls
so
on Tim Walz.
so the guy who shot the two who shot them, the guy 10 times, it's not their fault. It's the mayor's fault.
All right.
This is exactly what I was talking about what the rabbit hole. This is non-productive to the conversation at hand, what you guys are about to do, because you guys are about to go back and rehash the whole Biden administration, and the next thing
I'm
you'll
not.
know,
He is. I'm not going back. I'm taking it right from
because
the shot.
none of that accounts for people taking responsibility and
I'm
accountability for their
Exactly.
actions. It's easy
Exactly.
to say if it wasn't for ICE, the kids wouldn't have did. No, ICE did not tell those kids to throw bottles and beers or whatever they were doing in Kroger. I'm not going to sit here and say that is justification for those actions. They have to take responsibility for those actions, because again, there were plenty of kids who were there to protest ICE who did not do that. And that is where we are losing this argument in trying to defend. Again, goes back to my point of trying to make excuses or for the actions. It's an accountability thing. At the end of the day, we all got to be held accountable for our actions. If I go out and I beat somebody up on the street because Donald Trump said something that pissed me off, Fanon, Rucker, lawyer, you can correct me. But if I go to a judge and say I beat the hell out of that man because Donald Trump posted racist pictures of the Obamas on TV, I'm still going to jail. Like that is not a legitimate defense.
It depends on the drug.
But Kevin, my point.
Why they were there matters little.
Well, let me say this. because my point was not to go down the rabbit hole. I didn't even want to know that Kevin Gordon thought those things right now. I didn't even want to know that about him.
Well, you did go down the rabbit hole because you were blaming ICE. You did go down the rabbit hole.
Let me say this. I didn't know we were going to open up that whole thing. That wasn't my point. But what I was saying is that we were talking about accountability. It's the first thing I said. The kids were accountable. Wrong. No one on this call is saying they weren't wrong. Then why were they there in the first place? And I said, what if they hadn't got in trouble ever and they were there, part of the protest, right? And that kind of got them in the middle of this. What if? And then I said at the end of the day, without the protest, they might not have been.
Okay, that's the rabbit hole that Kevin was talking about. That is the rabbit hole.
I understand.
Trying to go back 3 or 4 causes instead of holding them accountable for what they did.
I understand, but I'm allowed to. It's a podcast, so I get to say it. That's what.
Just saying, you're going down the rabbit hole. That's all I'm saying.
That's where I went to, because if it's a teachable moment, then I'm going to go to the root cause of why my child decided to do something and work through how they can think better the next time, which would include when to show up and protest. It would include the whole thing, because it's not one piece. It is going backwards. Now, if no one thinks it's because of ICE and this is what's going on today, I'm okay with you thinking that, because I understand mental stability is a part of what we're going through in this nation.
Yeah.
And I see it.
Yeah, I appreciate you getting us.
Let's move on if you need to, but that was my point I was making.
Yeah,
I understand. Kevin, I appreciate you
and I know that we're
getting
talking
us
about
back on target here. Let me just say this real quick, Fanon. I'll give you straight to the floor. I appreciate Kevin getting us back on target here, because we could veer off into, relitigating Biden and Trump, and we've got other topics that could kind of touch on that. But Fanon, go right ahead.
Just a question I had. I saw the video, and I know we've been talking about, there was this crazy thing that happened after this protest in Kroger, and I did see a beer bottle or something flying in the air, and I saw that I read that a bottle got smashed. But other than that, 30 kids in the store. What are we aware happened? Did people get snatched? Was things stolen? Like, I know that we're talking about this visceral reaction to something that we saw, but do we know specifically what was done? I just hadn't heard, and I'm really sincerely asking that question.
I think that's a fair question. I mean, to my knowledge, that's about all that I've seen that's been reported. There was some vandalism, somebody got hurt. That's at least part of what was some of the reporting, that a patron in a store got hit. I'm not sure if it was in a bottle or somewhere they got hit. And then a lot of damage. And then some people were using some curse words, and then the children ran out.
It was the damage that I wasn't aware of. And that was, like I said, I saw people running and scattering. And I know that being caught up in those situations is a scary situation. But I wasn't aware of whether there was actually vandalism and at what extent it was. Because if there's vandalism committed by 2 people, we obviously wouldn't be suggesting that 28 others ought to be held criminally responsible for the actions of 2. If there was a lot of vandalism, some shelves got turned over, bottles got broken, there was items that were shoplifted, then they need to be going through the cameras in order to find out who committed it. But other than literally knowing that there was some kids that ran through Kroger, I wasn't aware of the extent of whatever the crime was that we're talking about. That's all.
Yeah. So, they again, the last article I read was today, and part of it was that, what's it read here? That the kids, some of the students who were engaged in rowdy behavior inside a Kroger store will face disciplinary action. That was a quote from Dr. Eugene Blaylock, who's a superintendent over North College Hill School. So I don't know what that means. Like I said, I mean, they're going to do what they're going to do. The only thing that I would say, Mr. Eugene Blaylock, he's got a very difficult job, probably far more difficult than I know. But, the one thing that stuck out to me is I just hate, and the same thing happened when we talked about him in North College Hill last year, was this us versus them, pointing fingers and deflecting blame, don't blame us, blame the parents. Where's the parents? I'm like, you can't have it both ways as a superintendent. When these kids do something that's great, it's our kids, our students. But when they do something that's not so great, it's the parents. It's like it's all in one. And nobody is more naturally responsible for their children than the parents of those children. I mean, we just keep getting that same narrative in Cincinnati over and over again. The parents are ultimately responsible because those are their children. And, we'll see what happens with, like I said, I hope they just do like some non-law enforcement community service. Giving kids a record does not help them, and they learn from it and just move on. And that's it.
Hey, Nathan, I agree with you on what you were just saying there about the superintendent. And I don't disagree with you about maybe even the consequences. I do think there have to be consequences, how you disperse those and what those look like. I'm not disagreeing with you about it from that standpoint. But I do agree with what you said about the superintendent, because one of the things that I was thinking was, unless this was just a totally spur of the moment event, and it could have been, I don't know, I haven't seen enough of the reporting to know that. But if this was something that was being planned, like, part of me wonders, like, where are the adults in that school building? Because if kids are talking about it, there's probably some rumors, things that are floating around. Are the adults in the school buildings just not hearing about this, the teachers in the school buildings? And if you are, right, like, if you are an adult in that situation and you're hearing that this is something that the kids are planning, what obligation do you have then at that point to try to be someone who makes sure that these kids are, if this is something that they are going to do, and if the school is endorsing it or going to allow it to happen in some way, shape, or form, making sure that it's happening, in the right way, trying to give these kids some guidance or some teaching. Hey, if you're going to go out and protest, this is how you do it, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. It does make you wonder, where were the adults at in this situation? Because I find it hard to believe, and maybe this did happen. Maybe the kids just did keep it so low key that it was a surprise to every adult involved, that just nobody heard about this thing that was going on, and it just happened organically, spur of the moment.
No, that's not what happened.
I do wonder where the adults were.
I think what happened is people knew about it, and you had a splinter group that decided they was going to take the opportunity to go do something dumb and do something silly and run through Kroger's, and they got a bunch of followers to do it, because that's what young people do, and that's what they did. And it's been happening since the beginning of time. This ain't nothing new. This is what kids do. So, I just don't want, I would just hate to see an overreaction that leads to a stigma to stigmatizing these young people and or putting something on their record that would alter their future opportunities for something as silly as this. And I feel that way whether it was my child or anybody else's child. I think we generally overreact in this city, especially with Black and brown children. We overreact.
If you know that, and I'm sure you've had this conversation with your kids, because almost every Black person has, there is no additional stigma. There is the stigma that Black people already live under. There are already certain segments of this community who view Black people in certain way. So this doesn't further stigmatize Black people. All it does is say to those people who already think Black people as a certain way, as its confirmation.
That was my point. I was stigmatizing these individual children.
What I'm saying is,
but I want to make clear, you're clear about what I'm saying.
What we know as a community and what we should be teaching our kids, and I'm pretty sure most of you do, is that you can't do the same thing that other people can do. You can't behave in certain ways that are going to add on to the stigma that already exists. So therefore, you got to know how to conduct yourself, whether that's protest, whether that's in the job, whether that's whatever. And we're not going to sit here and act like we don't have these conversations within the community about, hey, if you do this, how it's going to be perceived by the other community and how they're going to paint us. So it's not an overreaction. It's when you do these sorts of things, it's confirmation in the minds of some people.
No, it's an overreaction.
That's what we got to be telling our young kids.
It's an overreaction. So let me clear up two things. You're making a point about the stigmatization of Black people in general. I was making a point about these individuals being stigmatized inside the North College Hill community. That's the point I was trying to make. And we already know all of that, Kevin. And that doesn't mean that it's right. I mean, there was a time when there was a
agree
But
with
it's
you.
how
Not
we
right,
act.
but it's the reality.
there
But
was a
we-
time,
but it's the
yeah, but
reality.
there was a time when the reality was that you had to go to a separate water fountain. It doesn't mean that people should just accept it because it's reality. You still got to push back against things that are wrong, and it is an over stigmatization. Because when it's other people, it's kind of like, yeah, that was messed up, and you just kind of move on. But when it's
Listen,
black and brown people, it kind of lingers a whole lot longer, and people think that the treatment should always be harsher consequences.
and look at this. It is how we act. This is how we protest. This is what we've shown them. We showed them this. Tell me what protest doesn't go wrong and we haven't had issues. Tell me.
Well,
It's
yeah.
what we do. It's what we've shown them. We show them every day right now. And some people get off. Look at what happened at the Capitol. They got, like, what are y'all talking about? We want to train our kids it's okay to be treated differently and to be discriminated against and to treat one class of people one way and another class of people another way. And now we're talking about them acting up in Kroger, dead wrong. But they're seeing us do it. Am I lying?
I didn't hear what you said, Alandes.
They're seeing us do it. This is how we act. Like, am I wrong? This is how we act when we're.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Is this not what they've seen us doing every day lately?
Absolutely.
So what?
So you decided to go off topic again and go back to
No,
the Capitol
I'm
protest?
saying that
Why don't
I'm
we
saying
stick
that
on the
we're
subject
showing
here?
Kevin, this isn't off topic. I'm saying that we've shown them this. Like, we're saying that Kroger incident is horrible. We all agree. But we do have to take accountability to the behavior we've shown them in protest.
I hate to get honest. What are you talking about? What
I'm
behavior
talking
have we
about
shown these kids?
adults.
We need to move on to another topic, but you got to help me. What do you mean we've shown them? What are you
I
talking
think
about?
she's talking about just the way adults act in general.
And
Right? She's talking about
she's
she's saying
Kids are
look at
emulating what they're
January
seeing.
6th. She's saying look at the Black Lives Matter protest in which you had splinter groups who went off and did some other stuff. That's what she's saying. She's saying kids learn from adults. I don't think she's wrong.
And that was my point, Nathan. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying about what we have to be more diligent in how we teach our kids about how to do things. Right. I mean, Alandes said, kind of was saying this in some of her initial comments. This is a teachable moment. OK, should be a teachable moment for those kids and for all of us to say that, hey, protest is American as apple pie. It's baked into our history. There's nothing wrong with protest. And even if you walk out in the middle of the school day, you know, that is still a right that an individual has. It may be a right that you bear some consequences with suspension or whatever action schools take for you walking out. But as a part of civil disobedience or resistance, sometimes those actions that don't follow the quote unquote technical rules of like staying in school don't apply. However, I think when you cross the line into hurting individuals, property damage, breaking the law in that extent, those are the things that we have to try to steer our young people and, quite frankly, some older people away from. Because in my mind, whatever cause you are fighting for, that sort of behavior always undermines it. And then we spend 45 minutes on a podcast like this talking about kids breaking bottles instead of the real policy reason why they were protesting in the first place. And so Martin Luther King was very deliberate about his nonviolent. If you can't be nonviolent, don't get in line. If you're not going to be a knucklehead, then don't get involved in the student process. Don't show up at the George Floyd protest. Don't fall into any of these places where the peaceful people trying to keep it about the issues and get people on their side toward their issue.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying in it.
Okay.
Is
The sad part about this whole thing is it deflected the purpose of the protest in the first place.
Yes.
That's at the end of the day, that's the sad part. It deflects from what the real purpose was, and understanding and realizing that these kids are watching any and everything we do, because particularly for these kids to take into their to take an action about the ISIS and decide that they want to protest, it lets them know that they are connected. They know what's going on. Even if they can't vote, because somebody mentioned they can't even vote. Even if they can't vote, they still understand that because they can't vote doesn't mean it doesn't affect them. And so for these kids to decide that they want to take action, I think that's great to be involved and engaged. And the sad part is because of what they've done, it deflected from everything, the whole purpose and what they were supposed to happen. Let's talk about Tav. Tav did the same thing today, and I have not heard any negative story. So, a lot of these kids are organizing across this country against the ISIS, and it doesn't happen everywhere. It happened here at Kroger's, and I think that's an isolated event, and we need to move on.
All right, let's move on. Just happened today. Supreme Court strikes down President Trump's tariff plan. And I'm sure people have been paying attention. The tariffs is it appears to be a very important part of the president's economic policy. Here's my question. Has Trump's tariff policy been successful? Has it been positive or negative for the country, in your opinion?
Negative. It's causing everything to go up. You can't get anything. People's businesses are hurting. They can't get a lot of goods they need. Some of the shelves are bare because they can't get their products. And when they do get them, they raise the prices and people can't afford them. And so the businesses are suffering as well.
I think it's been positive. I think it's absolutely been positive, because going back to my economics course in college, tariffs were the primary revenue generation for this country prior to World War I. After World War I, they got this brilliant idea that we'll pay for World War I by taxing people, their incomes. And then the taxing of incomes got so out of control that then they did away with tariffs. Tariffs in and of themselves do not cause inflation. What causes inflation is the out of control government spending, subsidies, and some of the things that they put money into, because if there's government money going into certain things, those prices are going to get jacked up. Tariffs will raise prices in certain areas, but then lower prices in other areas. You've got people like Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank, Larry Kudlow. You've got a fellow by the name of Phil Flynn, who has a business in Chicago that is a commodity trader. You got various members of the economic community that agree that tariffs do not cause inflation. And if you look at the inflation, as far as tariffs, well, let's go back to the tariffs. You've got certain countries, and you had that picture up where it showed the reciprocal tariffs. You had the amount of tariffs that those countries charge us on our goods going into their country versus the tariffs that we charge. So if these countries have a cheaper labor rate, if they're subsidized by the government, they can produce those items for a lot less. Those tariffs can then be absorbed by them and cut into their margin. The exporter can absorb some of that because they're worried about whether or not they're going to have their clients and their customer, because they want to keep their basis. Then you have the importer that will absorb some of those tariffs. And then you've got the wholesaler, retailer, et cetera, before it gets to us. You've got tariffs out there that are between 15 to 25% on a lot of goods. And over the last year, prices have gone up 2.5%, 3%. So somewhere
and they're pushing those prices out on the buyers. They have it's times I don't. You can go online right now and try to buy something, and guess what? There's a charge there that says tariff. So they're pushing it off on us.
Well, if you're charging,
it absolutely is causing inflation. It's causing your prices to rise because and then you go places and say, well, I don't have all these products right now because of the tariff. It's caused my business to suffer.
Do you think that that's actually a true statement from them? Because we heard the same crap back during the pandemic when these companies were saying the supply chain issues is a problem, when it got to be the point that they just didn't order properly.
Here's
Or-
what
it
Kevin's
was an
talking points are straight out of, you know, he's probably reading from a
The
Trump
book
White House
of
press
BS.
release.
Dear
okay?
God, you mean I
So
can't?
let me just wait a minute, Kevin. Let me just say this.
Kevin,
Let me just say,
you're
come on,
reading
Kevin.
right out of the Biden
Kevin, you ain't been on here in a
the
minute,
bottom
man.
line
Give me
that
a
when
little
I make
latitude.
a comment, I'm making a comment for me. I'm not reading from a playbook. I'm going back to the economic stuff that I learned when I was in college.
Kevin, I'm
open a
having a
book
little-
once
I'm
in a
having a
while,
little
Kevin.
fun with
You
you,
might
man.
not
Give me-
make such stupid comments.
Give me a little latitude, Kevin. You haven't been on here on months, man. Let me
Well,
get
give
let me
me
have
a
little
latitude
fun here.
too,
Let me have
because
a little fun here with
making the assumption that I'm talking from a playbook, I think is dishonest and quite frankly insulting.
Okay, well, I apologize, Kevin, if you felt insulted. But
Don't
look, here, let's
apologize
just take a look at what Donald Trump said his tariffs were going to do, and you tell me, regardless of what you learned in school, the reality, just like when Joe Biden tried to tell people that the economy was fine and they didn't believe it because they knew what they were spending at the grocery store and how it was impacting their lives, the same is true for tariffs. So no matter
And
what kind of spin you try to, no matter what kind of spin you try to put on it, people who are buying more expensive products because of tariff surcharges know that what you just said is inaccurate. Also, Trump promised that his tariffs were going to revitalize domestic manufacturing and create jobs. Hasn't happened. In fact, the job growth in America has been atrocious over the last few months under Donald Trump. So it hasn't created jobs. It hasn't brought any manufacturing back to the United States. This is what he said his tariffs were going to do. Lower prices for, let me finish. Lower prices for consumers.
Put up a red flag.
Hasn't done that. Hasn't done that. Serve as a diplomatic and national security tool. Trump has alienated our allies with the tariffs. He's made America less safe by alienating our. So I'm just reading from you what Trump promised his tariffs were going to do. And so if they've been so successful, all of the things that he said that his tariffs were supposed to do, it's done none of that. So I don't know how you can sit here and say it's been successful.
Okay, you want me to answer the question? Okay, if even Lion Jerry Powell from the Fed has indicated that tariffs are a one-time up in price. If you are charged for whatever product and the tariff on that is X and such, that goes up just that period of time. The next month, that product is the same. The month after that, the product's the same, and the month after that. What is causing some of the what?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's what Lion Jerry Powell from the Fed said. Okay. So when you're talking about bringing manufacturing, in other words, what you're assuming, Kevin, is that by a stroke of a pen, that all of a sudden I can look out my door here and a manufacturing plant can be built and they can start manufacturing.
I know
how many of these companies have said they're coming back to the United States?
Kevin, this is what Donald Trump campaigned on. I didn't say it. He said it.
And how many companies have announced that they are reshoring?
We need a sponsor, Fanon. Hold that up higher. Hold it up higher.
Kevin, hold on. Here's the question.
Sponsor.
We all know that tariffs are a tool. Tariffs are a tool. It can be good and bad. It's all about how tariffs are applied. But tariffs can be applied in a way that makes one industry impacted and another one not. I'm going to stop there to make sure we're on the same page with what tariffs are and how tariffs can be used as tools, which is why it's so much conversation about whether it's negative or positive. Am I lying or am I telling the truth?
Because tariff is a tool because the tariffs from these other countries,
no, I didn't
our
say,
products going in there put us at a serious disadvantage.
With me so we can find a common ground. Let's stick with facts. Tariffs are a tool that can be used, and it can drive negative or positive depending on how that tariff is used. Yes or no?
That's not a yes. That's not a yes or no question.
Listen, it's a strategic move. This is what you learned in economics.
All right. Do we have Ford trucks?
Okay, Kevin, I'm going by your entire I'm going by your entire opening with regards to tariff. I'm not going to be emotional. I'm going to act like I went to a HBCU that taught me the same crap that Ivy Leagues taught. We're going to talk about tariffs. Tariffs is a tool that can be used in different industries to drive different prices and to drive different things. We can use them different ways. You can use them to actually hold an entire industry hostage. You can actually
not
You
necessarily.
see how you're saying necessarily? I'm
I said
talking
not
about the
necessarily.
fact it is a tool that you can use. Trump said he was going to use tools. He was going to use it in a certain manner. For some people, they might feel it's okay. For another group of people, it might be driving negative behaviors. For us to sit, or negative pricing, for us to sit here and act like it's one or the other, and to actually be taking sound bites from different people who actually want to agree with a certain thing isn't fair without understanding what a tariff is. So when people start debating and they start using things just to actually get something across to make you think one thing, it's unfair. It's unjustified. So in some pockets, it might feel like it's working. In other pockets, it's not.
Well, let me ask this, Alandes. Let me jump in real quick because I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to be heard. Hey, Kevin, hold on 1 second. I want to make sure everybody gets it because we've been talking about this topic for a second, but we haven't heard from everybody. So again, Supreme Court says that Trump's tariff policies have been illegal. It's been struck down. I want to know what the crew thinks. Has Trump's tariff policy been positive or negative for the country? Alandes, Phil, Fanon, what do you guys think?
Go ahead. Go ahead, Fanon. If you
No, go ahead.
let me tell you something. I'll ask you a little riddle here. Do you know what you call a Republican who supports tariffs? He or she is a rhino, a Republican in name only. Because if you go back over the history of the Republican Party, we have always opposed tariffs and supported free trade. The person that is generally looked upon as Mr. Republican, Ronald Reagan, do you know what he said about tariffs? I wish I had the exact quote. Kevin probably has it. He said they're terrible. He's totally against it. Okay. And that has been our party's position. The people who actually wanted tariffs historically were the Democrats. Okay. I'm not going to get into Republican Democrat. My point is, this is a classic example where what used to be a Republican position has now changed for one reason, because Donald Trump went the other way. It's similar to standing up to dictators like Ronald Reagan and most Republican presidents have done. Trump, he kisses up to dictators. Okay, so I'm making this point so people don't forget.
You know, okay, Phil, your TDS is hanging out so terribly. It's incredible.
No. Let me finish. Then you talk.
I'm sorry. It's not Trump derangement syndrome. It's Trump derangement addiction. But go ahead.
I have no problem if somebody wants to say, I am for tariffs. I think they're great. Fine. But don't tell me that you're a conservative or a Republican. That's because that has not been the position historically, especially with Ronald Reagan, of Republicans.
Well, like so many other things, Phil, you don't know what you're talking about. Okay.
Let me get.
Are we talking about free trade or are we talking about fair trade?
Hold on 1 second, Kevin. I want to get Fanon's thoughts. So what do you think? Has Trump's tariff policy, been positive or negative for the country?
Yeah, so I can't answer that from a financial standpoint because economics has never been my strong suit. So I can't answer.
What's your general impression?
Well, my general impression that it's been negative because of all of the tension, the arguing, the dissension that the tariffs have created. And ultimately now, if the Supreme Court's decision is sustained, what's going to happen is our prices are going to go up even higher because all those billions of dollars that were collected, they're now going to have to be returned to those businesses and those countries for those illegal tariffs. So it's going to be even worse for us as a country, emotionally, collectively, and I would argue financially.
Tariffs are a tax. Just so we're clear, they are a tax, and they're not paid for by the people in the other countries sending stuff here, which Trump says is totally false. They're paid for the people here, the businesses that import them, and they pass that cost on to the consumers.
Right.
It
That
is
is correct.
a tax.
That is
There's
correct.
been
Here's
no
the measure
evidence
that
of
we
that,
need to
Phil.
look at, Nathan. You ask when you ask if it's successful, right? Let's look at the facts and let's look at what Donald Trump said his tariffs were going to do. So if you're going to measure the success of somebody's policy, then you measure what they said it was going to do versus the reality of what it is. All of the rest of this stuff that we're talking about is irrelevant. This is what this man said tariffs were going to do. Okay, so let's talk about generating government revenue. I'll give him that. The tariffs have generated anywhere from $132 billion to $200 billion in revenue. So the tariffs have delivered on that. He said it was going to increase greater revenue for the country. He's delivered on that. If you think $132 billion is good, then check mark there. He said bring back manufacturing and jobs. I just detailed to you how that has not happened. Kevin says, well, it's a long game. But that ain't what Donald Trump said. I'm just telling you what the man campaigned on and what he said.
He said that manufacturing would be coming back.
No, look.
You have to build the factory. You have to hire the employees.
Kevin,
and you
go
have
back
to
and look at what the
manufacture.
man
Kevin,
said.
you can't be that.
Go back and
you
look at what the
cannot
man said.
You cannot be that uninformed about what happens in a manufacturing.
No, I'm not that uninformed, Kevin. But unfortunately, a lot of people
Can manufacturing begin immediately?
When Donald Trump said, as he always does with his hyperbole, I'm going to do this on day one, and in 6 months this is going to happen. You're talking about a long game, which I would agree. Tariffs are a long game, but that is not what Donald Trump sold the American people. Everything that he does is the greatest. And a lot of people, I don't see how they do it, but a lot of people seem to believe what that man says and vote for him on those reasons. So I'm just telling you what he said and what he guaranteed. And looking at it, it hasn't been that. The trade deficit and with China, mixed results on that. All economists are saying, and not really what Donald Trump promised in terms of impacting the trade deficit, right? High prices and costs. We've just been talking about how things are more expensive. So basically, 3 of the 4 promises that Donald Trump made about tariffs have not come to pass. Give him the money, give him the revenue generation, but that's revenue that's being passed on to the American consumers. So how much benefit are American people really seeing? Because we're actually paying for that. So by his own measuring stick, not mine, not Kevin Aldridge's measuring stick, but by Donald Trump's own measuring stick, I don't see how anybody could sit here and say that tariffs are successful.
Well, again, the tariffs themselves, when you look at the amount of tariffs that are charged on American products going to in other countries, and we are not selling a lot of our products there, that costs us jobs here and then does not allow our manufacturing companies to then sell those products over there. There is a difference, Phil, between free trade and fair trade. If you're going to have free trade, and under Reagan, if you look at the trade deficit and you look at the tariffs at that point in time, if everybody's charging the same tariffs, if everybody is on the same level playing field, that's a valid comment. But when you have a situation like in Canada, where if we're selling a gallon of milk over there or eggs or whatever, there's a 200% tariff, we're not going to be sending stuff over there and they're not going to be buying our products. If there's a 100% tariff on a Ford 150 going into Japan, we're not going to be selling any vehicles over there. So to level the playing field, which was what this was, these were reciprocal tariffs, which were supposed to level the playing field. So we have free trade or fair trade as opposed to just flat out free trade. And a lot of these countries have lowered their tariffs and have a lot of these companies that were overseas have announced that they're going to now manufacture facilities. As a matter of fact, Georgia has had, we've had manufacturing facilities announced here in Kentucky. We've had those announced in Georgia. We've had companies coming over and coming back to the United States to manufacture their products. So from that aspect, it's a good thing. And yes, it is a long game. You just can't go out immediately. Where are these things going to be manufactured if the building hasn't been built yet and the people haven't been employed?
Guys,
So,
I got to,
Kevin-
excuse me, I got to jump off in a couple minutes, but I do want to read something from just so we're clear on this. This is from the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library. It says Ronald Reagan believed that while tariffs might seem beneficial in the short term, they ultimately hurt American workers and consumers by leading to trade wars and economic decline. He advocated for free trade and warned against protectionist policies that could damage long-term prosperity.
I agree with that, but the other countries have not been playing fair with us. If their tariffs are twice, 3 times what ours, that comment by Ronald Reagan goes out the door because they're not participating fairly with us, Phil. You got to see the other side of the equation. If you can quote from the Ronald Reagan Library all you want, but the facts are that if it sounds, if we were to, at back then, it was true. If we
I'm
were
just saying what real Republicans believe. That's all.
Phil, if we were to raise our tariffs, yes, as Ronald Reagan gave the example.
That's all I'm pointing out. You're welcome to support tariffs. I'm just talking about what we Republicans
I'm
and we
talking
conservatives believe.
not
That's
you
all.
Republicans. You are the biggest rhino out there, Phil. You have got Trump derangement syndrome like nobody else. I've talked to a couple of people that said that know you that say, I don't know what has happened to Phil. He has gone off the deep end, and he's no longer the type of person that I used to know. And as a matter of fact, from what you used to be, from what I used to know, you have gone off the deep end as far as Trump,
All right, I'll talk to my
derangement
therapist
addiction.
about it. Okay, Kevin.
Yeah, you do that, Phil.
I'll get an appointment with my therapist. Work.
You do that, Phil.
I just
Talk to your
quoted
therapist.
Ronald Reagan.
Yeah,
That's
you
all I
can
did.
take-
Don't hold it against me.
Again,
I'm ready
Phil,
to take up for Phil for the first
look
time.
at what Ronald Reagan said and apply that to what is going on in the other countries. If we are in a situation where we are charging the same tariffs as they are, it's a level playing field. If they're raising their tariffs on us, we're at a disadvantage.
Well, obviously, if the election of 1980 was held today, you'd vote for Jimmy Carter, and that's fine. You have every right to that.
I would
Hey,
never.
I vote for Jimmy Carter.
outside of you guys fussing, Kevin, let me tell you where you dead wrong.
Oh,
And where you
sure,
need to
of
be.
course.
You just need to
I'm
be
dead
honest.
wrong and you're dead
You do.
right.
I am. I'm gonna, because you told me right up front that you actually are one of the, what did you call Phil about him being against this rhino and against this administration? So you're one of the people that I call something else. And I'm not going to call on here, but what I want to make sure of is we only talking facts. Fact is, the companies that moved already had plans. They accelerated. And so don't act like all the tariffs have driven these new manufacturers. Tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. We can start with GE, who had planned it 4.5 years ago. They accelerated it because of what's going on now. So don't come and act like something has happened. And because of this, that happened. The decision was made. Stop. Don't
Has
say
Toyota?
I'm lying. Hold on for a second.
Did
Unless I'm lying.
Toyota
No,
make a
I'm
plan
not.
4 years
Listen,
ago
we're
that
not
they were going to come to the
debating.
United States? They
We're
are now
not
coming to the
debating.
United States.
We're not debating. What we're talking about is what you said, and I'm telling you the true facts, because what you guys
I didn't say anything about GE.
you did. You said GE is one of the big things that's happening in Kentucky. Quit playing. You went through it. You said that manufacturers was coming back, even in Kentucky, because of tariffs. I'm calling that a lie because it was planned before the tariffs. We can go through
The plants that are coming to Kentucky are automobile manufacturing.
Maybe you should,
companies.
you know what? Maybe you should go on mute because I allowed you to talk. I take my notes to make sure I know what you said so I don't forget. And then I go look at facts because what happens in these arguments is a lot of bull crap. Because what everyone is trying to do is drive everyone to think one certain way. But when you open your mind and seek to agree, the first thing you do is try to figure out if they're right or not. So what I'm telling you is most things you said has been rhetoric. It has been talking points that you've been given. I don't know whether y'all study in the closet. I don't know whether it's inside the sheets you put on your head. I don't know.
It's what?
how you get the
It's what?
information. I don't know how.
Did you say the sheet I put on my head?
Sheet you put, and I said I don't know whether people. I don't know how they all keep saying it. And yes, I said that.
A sheet.
Listen,
Are you accusing me of being Robert Byrd? Are you accusing me of being a Democrat?
Okay,
Klansman?
I'm not. Listen.
I think that's a little harsh.
What I am
be honest.
accusing you of is
Yes,
not
you are.
being let me finish.
Yes, you are. And
Okay.
no, I am not going to allow you to continue
listen
because you are
to
not
this.
going to accuse me of something.
Listen, I
unless
accuse
you
you
want
of
me to
lying.
accuse you of something.
I'm accusing you of lying. I'm accusing you.
I am not
of
lying. Go back, pick up.
I'm not even accusing you. I'm giving you facts.
GE
tell you
is
you
coming
lying.
to Kentucky,
And you
but
cannot
also
sit here
Toyota is
and
too.
act like it's okay to talk to this.
So
dude from
Toyota
back
is not
this
coming
kind
to
of crap
Kentucky?
and not feel like it's not coming back.
Toyota
to
is
you.
not coming to Kentucky?
So listen to this. I did. Okay, let me go.
You know, the problem is you don't know what the hell you're talking about, so you're just running your mouth right now.
The problem is you assume we don't know what you're talking about. There's the problem. It's called education. You have decided.
Well, educate
you're the only
yourself and
person
then
who
come
knows
back.
something. And what you've said is untrue. I don't have to debate it. The truth is that the manufacturing companies that you are talking about that is coming back, whether in Kentucky or Georgia, had plans before the tariffs hit. Most of their plans.
But then you answered when you started flapping your gums before. You said they accelerated it because of the tariffs.
Yes, Pamela, I need some popcorn, please.
So of course,
can I interject something and say this?
Stop there because that is a fact. I have 4 more.
You don't have the facts.
Okay.
You have Democratic talking points.
You don't have an uneducated audience. So you might want to think through what
you might want to think you're educated, but you're not.
This is all very entertaining. However,
yeah, this is really entertaining. But let me just jump in.
Alandes, I never said that GE was coming.
I gave GE as an example. Have you heard?
And I gave Toyota as an example.
Let me say this. Let me jump in, guys. I think I got to be honest, Alandes. I think the sheet comment was a little over the line a little bit. That's just my opinion. I'm just putting it out there just to be okay. I felt like that.
Listen,
but I must say this. I think,
but I also feel like Kevin's comment is saying that she uneducated was wrong too. So it was 2 of them. We gotta stop these.
I think you're commenting about me being a liar.
I don't want to get into a tit for tat. If I was judging the two, let me finish, Alandes. I don't want to get into a tit for tat.
No,
let me finish the Alandes. Let me land this. I don't want to get into a tit for tat and judge the different comments. I just wanted to make that what I thought about Alandes' comment.
But
let me say this. I think we can all agree on the one thing. I think we can all agree with is that Trump's tariffs policy has alienated the United States. I think we can all agree on that, right? We're now alienated from our allies in Canada. We're now alienated from our allies in Europe. It's not just that, it's just the rhetoric, but the tariff policy has alienated the United States. And I don't think isolationism or alienating the United States is a good thing. I mean, can we all agree on that?
I don't think they've alienated the other countries.
Huh? I mean, Canada, the prime minister in Canada said that there is a schism between Canada and the United States, and it's not temporary.
It's that type of comment right there, Kevin. It's that type of comment right there that makes you seem disingenuous and disconnected. Because to say that other countries haven't been alienated, that makes you have.
Kevin, I was already in the middle.
I hear you, Nathan, but I'm gonna get this out. You're not gonna.
Yeah, no, you can get it out, but just let me get it out once I finish the thought. That way I don't lose the thought. Because my brain is not as tight as yours. Like you might be able to remember things while other people are talking.
A genuine comment.
But I'm not like that. So I need to get it out now or I'll forget it. And so the point I was trying to get to is that not only are we alienated, and you can just take this from what's coming from the heads of other states, but it appears to be, and this is just not my hope. I don't like this. I don't want this. I don't care who the president is. I'm an American. Nobody wins. But it appears to be that the biggest winner with Trump's tariffs policies is China, because now our former allies are now realigning economically with them. And that's not good for any of us. And Kevin, I mean, Kevin Gordon, I'm not going to insult your intelligence, but what I would just say is Google that. Google what is happening in terms of the reorganization of economic alliances and tell me if I'm wrong. Our allies, longtime allies, are now realigning with China. That does not benefit us, our children, or our grandchildren. Go right ahead, guys.
So if they're realigning with China, then his comments just last week that they were going to lower tariffs on the goods coming into the United States, that didn't happen, that they aren't interested in making a trade deal with the United States, that they aren't trying to do maybe some leverage on that part. Do you really think that the Canadian government wants to go whole hog with a communist dictatorship over there?
I don't think
that's not being used. That's not being used.
I don't think they want to go whole hog with an American dictatorship, which is, quite frankly, right where we're heading. Kevin, look,
well,
man,
if Trump is a dictator,
I want to say this to you, Kevin. I want to say this to you, Kevin. Just because you talk loud and try to talk over people doesn't do anything to me, because I can get right with you.
If you're going to
I'm only going to say this. I'm only going to say this,
interrupt.
Kevin, because you wanted to try to act like you were so offended when I said that, you were coming out of the Trump playbook. But you sat here and said everybody on this panel, including Phil, had Trump derangement syndrome. So that's okay for you to pull that little thing out, even in jest. But when I was joking with you, you got all in your little feelings. You got all in your little feelings because I brought up your boy and how you just spitting out his talking points. And it shows because everybody who's listening to you knows where this is coming from, Kevin, because it doesn't have any depth to it. For you to sit there and say that Trump has not alienated our allies, my God, Kevin, what planet are you living on? What planet are you living on?
Is Japan an ally still? Have we alienated them?
I ain't saying nothing about Japan. I didn't even name allies.
But we
alienated Canada.
But for you to say he hasn't alienated anybody, Kevin, somebody said you called me stupid in the comments. I'm gonna hope that ain't true, because I didn't hear about that. And if you did say that, you better be glad I didn't hear you say that. But I'm gonna give you the benefit of the doubt that you didn't say that, because what I'm about to say to you, what you're saying and how you're sounding, I'm gonna say sounds ignorant. I'm not gonna use the word stupid. I'm just gonna say ignorant and leave it there.
Well, apparently these alienated,
and I guarantee you, I read and watch a hell of a lot more than you do, Kevin Gordon. I can tell you that.
I guarantee you that what you're reading and what filter you're reading that through,
I can say the same.
Less uninformed than what you normally would be. But when you look at how Trump is treated at the G7 or at these various conferences, where our alienated allies, Maloney and the prime minister from Japan, how they react to Trump, you're going to tell me that they feel alienated? Just because Mark Carney, who is a acolyte of Trudeau, and because he is operating as a dictator up there, just because he is getting bent out of shape because of some of the policies of the Trump administration, doesn't mean that all our allies are opposed to us.
All right. Fanon, you want to say anything?
Nah.
I'm stepping back into that. All right. All right, let's move on to the next. So let's talk about Lex Wexner, who is a billionaire. He has a big impact here and in footprint here in the state of Ohio. His name came up in the Epstein files. And as a matter of fact, I read he's going to sit down with Congress. Matter of fact, he's already started. And you can look at some of those videos that are out right now. And what came out is that there's a lot of Ohio politicians who took campaign donations from him. So you've seen a lot of them now. They're saying they're going to donate those campaign contributions because perhaps they don't want to be associated with somebody who's in the Epstein files. And it appears he's in the Epstein's files and not like a passive way, right? So here's my question about that scenario. Does giving the money back fix anything, or does it just change the headlines? Like, what would you expect a politician to do if they took campaign contributions from somebody who ends up being in the Epstein files like after the fact, should they keep the money? If they keep the money, do you look at them differently? Or if they donated, that's good enough for you? Should they come out and make a very strong statement against the person? Like what's real accountability or responsibility in this kind of situation?
Yeah, I'd actually like to hear this because when I was running for office and, you know, even in my most recent race, we raised about $2.5 million for the campaign overall. And I personally raised a lot of money, and a significant amount of money came from a particular individual who subsequently was charged, indicted, and convicted of an offense involving the public. And I said very loudly and specifically, I wasn't giving any of it back. This was after my campaign was over. So I would love to know people's position. If I didn't do anything wrong or ask them or elicit the funds in an illegal or improper way, why should that money go back? I don't think it should.
I think it's a no-win situation. If you keep the money, people are going to say something. If you give the money back, people are going to say you only did it for appearances. I think it depends on how close you were to the donor at the time and whether you knew of their activities at the time. I mean, because sometimes, you know, you get money from a lot of people, and I think a lot of the politicians said these were unsolicited donations that just kind of come in. And so because Lex Wexner gave you money doesn't necessarily mean you have a handshake relationship with the guy or that you guys are close. I mean, he might be one of many donors that gave you money. I think it comes down to the individual politician's personal conviction. If they want to keep it, fine. If they want to give it back, fine. But I think once you've gone down the rabbit hole of that money is in your account and then something comes out on people, the public is going to go with that where they're going to go, and you have no control over it. And I don't think you're going to win. I don't think you're going to win either way, whether you keep it or give it back.
I'd have to agree with what Fanon was saying. That I mean, it's in you too, Kevin. I mean, if it's not something that I didn't know beforehand, and you donated the money, and the money's already spent. I mean, like, there's nothing I can do about it. I mean, if you ask me a question, yes, I'm going to denounce the actions and things like that. And people always say, oh, it's unsolicited. It sounds good. Regardless, solicited, unsolicited, it doesn't matter. You got the money, keep it, move on. You know, you don't condone his actions. You didn't know anything about it, and move forward. I mean, but to keep going back and forth and I'm going to donate this and I'm going to donate that, it's that does become a little for the cameras. I mean, I think Fanon, like he said, that person did that, and no, I'm not giving that money back. I didn't have anything to do with it. I didn't take it, you know, illegally. I did, you know, whether you solicited or unsolicited, doesn't matter. And move forward and keep on going on. And I'm going to keep trucking down the road on my campaign. I'm going to stay focused on my campaign. I'm getting off a topic. You know, that's what I would say. This is off topic for my campaign. I can't control somebody else's actions.
I agree too. I think that if your conscience is clean and you ain't know nothing about it and all of that, then it shouldn't be a problem. Where the problem comes up if you were part of it.
Correct.
And that's where you should feel like the truth is gonna come out. And y'all some nasty people in that little group. Like, so you never know these days when you think about all the people that they've identified that's been a part of that. So maybe that's why they're backing up. I don't know. But if I was clean and you gave me money, I'd just be able to tell you I was clean. I don't know nothing about the other stuff. But a lot of them was part of it. So I think that's where the problem is coming in. They mostly look like, let's see, you, Kevin.
What do you think, Kevin?
You know, it is amazing how somebody can be so hateful and try to come across as so pleasant. Not even going to recognize what you just said, because quite honestly, I think it's disgusting. And it makes you kind of a disgusting person as well. But as far as this topic is concerned, Fanon Rucker and Kevin Aldridge, I was going to say we can agree on this stuff. we can agree on all this because, again, you aren't the one that you didn't deal with this guy. You didn't know who the person was. You didn't agree with what he did. This guy or whoever it was contributed to your campaign, and they and you can't control who contributes to your campaign. And if you've done nothing wrong, then you've got nothing to be ashamed about. The problem is that you have certain people, the spoon-fed regurgitators in the mainstream media, that want to try to put an albatross around somebody's neck that doesn't belong there because they want to score points and get clicks to their website. And I think because our media is so, how should I say, untruthful, and they don't approach stories the proper way, they just want to have a gotcha moment. That's where you have a problem, where when somebody receives a campaign contribution, that then now all of a sudden they're tied to that person unfairly.
Hold on.
Hey,
let me start a pot. Let me start a pot. Go ahead, Alandes.
Nate, I get to say something. So, Kevin, let me be clear, because you said I was coming off like this nice person. I didn't want to come off as a nice person, so I need to.
You're successful with that. Go right ahead.
Good. The second thing is you have made so much general things that weren't true. Tell me where I'm lying. Most of the people in Epstein look like you, not like anyone on this group. So I wasn't saying it was you. I was saying that when you think, because we've been talking in
and what does that add to the conversation?
No, it's my turn.
What does that add to the conversation?
Let me say, we was talking about Epstein. And
okay, what's that add to the conversation?
Wait, listen to this. Because you get to decide what you say and how it adds value or not. You get to generalize, you get to summarize, you get to tell half truths, and it's okay. And when I give it back to you, and the only thing, no, hold on. You can do it. You can do it. You really have learned how to listen a little bit. Listen to understand me.
Not to a load of crap.
You can do it. Crap on, you can do it. I've allowed you to call me names. And even when I said yes, you've called uneducated, you said a lot. And Nate, I respect you, right? But it has been one-sided. And Kevin, when I get back, you can't take it, which is what happens. But the truth is, which is where I like to stay, is when we talk about Epstein and we talk about if they had anything to do with it, the people look more like you than me or Kevin.
What does it have to do with anything?
I comment whether it was rude or not.
What does it have to do with anything?
Let me finish. I normally would say
finish.
To be rude. I meant to be, because you're rude. You made the comment. I came off as a nice person. I don't want to. What I want to come off as is a person that actually listens to facts. And I listened to you, and most of your stuff was rhetoric. It wasn't packaged in a truthful manner when we talked about anything. Now, Epstein,
give me an example.
Wait, you can do it.
Well, how long are you going to filibuster here?
Because when I call it what you want to, I do not give us crap. You hear me? Okay, good. I do not give a crap.
Agree on one. We can agree on that.
Okay, we can. And what we all agreed to is that the person should be able to spend the money. I took it another level and said, but if you were a part of it, it's probably making you question and going to make you back up even more. That was what I wanted to make sure we were all on the same page on. Is that you started off?
What does it add to the conversation to you to make the comment that Epstein and the people around him look like me?
The same thing that it helped when we first started talking about protests and you start talking about people's GPA. The same thing it mattered when you start calling us uneducated. It keeps going. You don't listen.
So GPA has to do with race?
Discrimination is true. Discrimination is accurate. I just don't deal with it.
GPA has to do with race? Is that what you're saying? We want to go back and revisit that?
I'm not letting you get away with it. So I think I'm giving you what
here's what I would hope. I would hope that I think we're kind of veering off into the personal just a bit too much, and rather than keeping it on the topic.
You say it when I say something, Nate, but he's doing it first, and then you come up when I have something to say to him.
Yeah, but if I'm being honest with you, Alandes, and I'm always keep it real. I just felt like at least one of your comments was across the line, the whole with the sheet thing.
At least 3 3 of them was across the line, but I'm matching his energy.
I think you're surpassing his energy.
Hold him accountable.
I have no problem with it. I have no problem with it. There's no human being other than my wife on this planet.
Don't give him the extra edge
that I'm nervous about. There's no human being in this planet that I'm nervous about approaching other than my wife. So I have no problem with that. But I'm just being honest with you. I think that, and I'm not, and I don't really want to have this conversation right here. Perhaps we can talk about it later. But I just feel like we can go hard, but we don't want to get super personal.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? We don't want to get super personal.
He started off was about me. And then I say something, and it's a problem, but you're probably right.
I think,
you know what? It can be my,
just trust me on this.
It can be on
just a little bit. Yeah. And then you came back with the jab about the Epstein.
I'm a jab. Okay.
I'm a jabber too. But I think
you're right.
I think Kevin's question is accurate. He's like, well, how is that pertain to what we're talking about? And I cannot say that he's wrong in that.
Okay.
He is right. Because I'm wondering myself, like, what does that have to do with the point?
Okay.
And I'm just trying to be fair.
No,
I'm just trying to be fair.
Okay.
So
can I say this? Can I say this? Sure. I hear what you're saying, Nate, but I also hear what Alandes saying, because there's been comments that Kevin has said that has nothing to do with either. Just like when we were talking about the kids protesting, he brought up their GPA. What has that got to do with? Okay, they bring your right. So it's the same thing. Right.
That was his opinion about the issue. He wasn't, and again, I'm not trying to defend anybody. I'm just trying to preserve the integrity of the show. As I read, that was his opinion about the issue. He wasn't making that personal per se. You know, when he talked about the GPA, he was just saying, hey, listen, if y'all GPA scores is low, why is y'all out here protesting? You need to get in these books. That was the point I think he was trying to make.
Okay.
Again, I'm just trying to be objective, not to say I'm perfect.
I will apologize for being on your show and saying something that made
no need to apologize. This is the show, Alandes.
Hold on. When people
listen,
apologize.
This is how we talk.
I apologize for how it was taken, but Nathan, I apologize for how it was taken, but I did not mean any of it. But I apologize for how you took it, but it ain't nothing I didn't mean.
I understand, but I don't want us to get so into the ad hominem and start pointing. It gets away from the issues. A little bit of it, you know, we challenge each other's, you know, knowledge here or there, and you throw a little light jab. But I don't want heavy jabs, because heavy jab leads to long-term hurt feelings. You know what I'm saying? I don't want that. A little light jab here and there. I mean, me and Kevin do that. Really light, but nothing heavy. Nothing heavy. Because what we want to do is we want to walk away from this, be cool, and come back again on Tuesday, right? And I don't want anybody to walk away from this like, F this. This environment is toxic. And I feel like it's kind of, if I'm being 100% honest, it's kind of going there. A little bit is cool because I love the drama and a little bit of popcorn. This is a podcast. I'm with it. But I just don't want to go too far there, and I want to protect everybody.
Okay.
I want to protect. I don't have no problem saying nobody on here.
I want to protect
and anybody in the world, but I just want to I want to make sure that we preserve the right environment so that everybody feels like they want to come back.
Nathan, if I could add on to this, and I think look, the reality that we have to reconcile here is that the majority of people on this podcast, and a lot of who are probably in the chat, are people who look like us. Kevin and Phil do not. They have a unique perspective, and there are going to be things that they're going to say that are going to be triggering for Black folks. Now, I think sometimes that there may not be malice behind their words, but it sounds that way. So Kevin probably doesn't get to say to a Black person that you're uneducated is a triggering thing. But that might be something that he might say to anybody, knowing Kevin. So there is there is a little lack of cultural competency. I think sometimes when we have people who are not part of the culture who are on here, they're going to say things that absolutely are going to be triggering. Not saying that we shouldn't correct that. Not saying, hey, probably not a good thing to say to an educated Black woman that that they're uneducated, because it's not going to be perceived that way. Now, Kevin called me stupid. Okay. I thought that was a little classless and unprofessional.
Let me just say this, Kevin. Kevin, you apologize, and I'll apologize.
I'm all about consistency on this pod.
If that's what I said, I
try to be fair to everybody. But just like you got in your feelings when Alandes said what she said to you, you don't think about when you call people stupid and other things like that. Hey man, if you can get that off, people gonna get it off on you. So if you don't want, as Alandes said, people gonna match the energy you bring. So if you don't want people hitting you with the Trump stuff and the racist stuff, then you, again, stick to the facts. When I attack anybody's argument on here, unless I'm just having fun, I'm bringing facts. I argue with you about the tariffs on the facts of what Trump said. I didn't have to get personal with you because people who are listening are smart enough to figure out whose facts and what version they want to listen to. So I said this before we came into this. This ain't built for everybody, right? This platform. And if we can't discuss issues and go hard in the paint without it becoming intensely personal, then, you know, this is not going to be something that's probably going to last long.
We got it. We all adults. But, you know, I think you eloquently said some things that need to be heard for sure. Absolutely. So I ain't trying to scold nobody. I got 2 children and none of them are on here, and I'm not trying to act like they are. I just want to pull us back from the edge a little bit. That's all. And we're going to go right back to the edge again. And that's where we should be. This show will always be on the edge. I get it. So, and I'm just trying to just make sure we have a good environment. That's all. That's all.
I just want you to know I went harder on Terrence, and I like him.
You did go hard on Terrence.
And you never said a word. So that's where I'm gonna have a problem. We're gonna talk about it later because I believe in.
It was the sheet comment. That was that. I
said, you know what? Take it for real if you have a sheet. It didn't bother me because I've never put one on, but I understand what I was saying because I look at people like that might wear sheets in the evening. I don't know, but that was my perspective. I didn't mean it. I meant it. But
I think if you're talking about cheap comments, maybe you ought to go back to the history of the Democratic Party and start
I can go back to the history. Here's the problem. I don't want to talk about it now. We've decided to be nice and civil. So we're going to hang up, right? I think it's almost the end of the show, right?
Yeah, it's almost the end of the show. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's that part in the show. We didn't get to all the. I'm sorry, Fanon, you going to say something?
Well, no, I heard a comment about the history of the Democratic Party, and I always like to interject the truth that when people start talking about that political party crap, that it's more about the political ideology than it is about labels. So when we talk about ideology and party labels, let's be politically and historically honest about what it is. The radical reconstruction took place by Republicans, but they took place by people who were ideologically liberal and progressive. It had nothing to do with the label of the party. The conservatives are the ones who started the KKK. The conservatives are the one who were trying to deport people. The conservatives are the one who believe.
And what party were they part of?
So when you talk about the history of the Democratic Party, let's just be politically and historically honest about the truth that we're talking about political ideology versus political labels.
Who were the members of the KKK and who's formed the KKK? Democrats.
Conservatives.
No, conservatives. You're missing the whole point.
Democrats.
Okay.
Do you know
the Democrats were the conservatives, Kevin? That's the part of the story that you're not telling. Historically, the old Democrats back in those days, the Southern whites who did not like, who wanted to preserve slavery and all of that. That's who the Democrats were. You're right. But they were the conservatives of that day. And the Republicans.
It doesn't matter because
yes, it does matter. Yes, it does matter, Kevin. Because the ideologies have switched.
Party, they didn't move to the Republican Party.
They did move. They did move to the Republican Party.
Name one.
Oh my God! What's the dude's name? He was the most famous racist.
The dude.
Huh?
Well, I'll give you Strom Thurmond.
Kevin, what do they call Republicans? Wait a minute, Kevin. What do they call Republicans today? Conservatives, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Democrats were conservatives back in those days. The Republicans were progressives. Do you think back in that America that freeing black people and slaves was a conservative idea? Hell no, that was radically progressive. The Democrats, the Dixiecrats and all of those who were a part of that old South, They began to transition to the Republican Party.
They did not.
During that civil rights era. You know why? Because the Democrats changed ideologically and started
you can't name one
rights, and the old racists couldn't handle
the Republican Party.
What'd you say?
Other than Strom Thurmond, who didn't switch parties until 1972 and had nothing to do with Brown versus Board of Education that the Dixiecrats were protesting. Not one Dixiecrat ever became a Republican. You can't name
Kevin, you just agreed that Republicans now are called conservatives, correct?
Right.
And Democrats are liberals, right? And progressive, correct? Democrats are considered liberals and progressive, correct?
I'm sorry, what?
Democrats are considered progressive, correct?
I would say, no, I wouldn't call it progressive. I'd call it socialist, but yeah, okay.
Okay, but you will say the Republicans are considered conservatives, correct?
Right.
Okay, so that's what he's saying. The ideology has changed because back then the Democrats were considered the conservatives, and now the Democrats are considered the liberals.
All right, would you say
the progressives? And so the ideologies change, and so therefore that's what he's saying. I don't care if a person jumped party from that party. Is talking about the ideology of it, the thought process of it. The thought process changed.
Here's a perfect example, Kevin. The Republican Party of today is a perfect example of what we're talking about, changing ideologies. You call Phil Heimlich a rhino because he's no longer he's not a MAGA Republican. MAGA infiltrated the Republican Party and changed the ideology of the Republican Party to the point where people like Phil Heimlich no longer feel like it's their party. That's the same thing that happened to the Republican Party post 1970 moving forward. What they were when Black people were robustly a part of the Republican Party is clearly not what they've evolved through from the 70s to this day. And the Democrats have become become less of what they were prior to 1970 and more of what ideologically people of color and different, diverse, more progressive people identify with. Their ideologies have changed.
Well, who were the people that voted for the voting? Who were the people that pushed through the Voting Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965? Was that Democrats?
Progressives.
That wouldn't have passed had it not been for Republicans. A higher percentage of Republicans.
To a party label. Deal with the ideology of the individuals who proposed and passed it.
All right, let's look at the ideology there. Let's look at the ideology there.
Because this really wasn't on. Hold on, Kevin.
Would it not be?
I love this conversation. We seem to always go there when you come on. But we didn't really schedule to talk about this. And so I don't want to hold you guys. It's a Friday. I know you are all very busy people, and I don't want to hold you just to talk about something that we didn't really plan on talking about. So
well, let's end with this thought then. Okay. If you go back to the ending of slavery, that would have been a conservative principle at that point because you would be living up to and enforcing what the Constitution stood for. All men are, or the Declaration of Independence, all men are created equal. That's not a progressive term. That is a conservative term that would be that, okay, these people are not to be slaves. They are to be people of the United States. They are here and they should be recognized. That's a conservative principle. That's not a progressive.
But Kevin, it is a conservative principle, but you got to understand, you got to talk about politics is driven by the culture of the day. And the culture and the norms of that time was not that Black people were all equal. If that were the case, there would have never been slavery. But the prevailing culture in the United States of America was that Black people were not considered citizens
in the Democratic Party.
And so they were not subject to the constitutional protections that white people were. Let's just say that. So conservatism, Kevin, at the root, conservatism is about sustaining the status quo. right? Maintaining the culture. That's what that Donald
No,
Trump ran
standing
on
up
that.
for the
That's what Make America
Constitution
Great
and what the
Again
principles
is
this country
let's
was founded on.
preserve this great white American culture that we had. That's why he won. That's why he prevailed. That's why he prevailed with so many people. That Make America Great Again is not a progressive mentality. It's a conservative mentality. So do you think that in the culture of that day, that the more prevailing thought among most white people in that country was that black people deserve the same rights and privileges as anybody else? No,
Well,
a
outside the
conservative thought
Democratic Party,
process
they
would have
did,
said,
yes.
don't disrupt the status quo. And that's where the Democrats were at that particular time. You're right.
And
were
they
the
still are
conservatives.
today. I don't
It was great
understand
being
why
on with
you
you all
can't.
today. Can't wait till the next time.
Beg pardon?
That's all we got, guys. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. I really, really do. Thank you to each and every one of you, to Phil, who had to get off. Appreciate you. I know you're all very busy people. I really, really want to honor your time. And we'll be back next week, Tuesday and Friday at 1:15 p.m. is when we go live. And again, thank you, Alandes, Laketa, Fanon, Kevin G, Phil, appreciate you. To all the people in the audience, thank you for being here. Look for some clips over the weekend. We've had I think this is our 8th show of the 2nd season, so it's clip time. Look for clips over the weekend. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Fanbase. So if you're there, find us, Hot Mike Cincy, and have a great rest of your day. Really appreciate the conversation. Got hot today, boy. Woo. Woo. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
All right.